there's a Chinese proverb that goes, may you live in interesting times. And these are very interesting times indeed. The past 20 years, believe it or not, we've been involved in this crazy internet thing. We're celebrating 20 years in business. We started in 1996, what I like to call the ancient days of the internet. We started with a vision to really kind of fight the music establishment, in a sense, to promote independent music where people can discover independent musicians, listen to their song samples, learn about them, and even purchase their music online through a secure server, way back in 1996. We are a digital-first company, so it's really appropriate that our theme today, 20 years later, is digital-first. We've been this way since the very beginning. The idea ahead of its time back then, because there's no MP3s, no broadband. People were afraid to buy things online, believe it or not. Not the case today, right? So we've seen a tremendous amount of change over these past 20 years. And all of you can appreciate it since you're in it too, the amount of technological change that has really evolved into how we conduct business today, especially as marketers. So that's why we put on this event, the Integrated Marketing Forum. So really a forum for all of us to come together and share knowledge and learn from each other.
Great, thank you, Craig. And just like, I guess we can just kind of dive straight in. Like Craig had talked about the importance of digital first and digital first marketing, and his kind of illusion of, now we have Netflix and now we have like an Uber, and kind of the importance of really focusing on that and what consumers are really looking for. Would love to kind of get your unique perspectives on really why is it important to be have that digital first mindset, and what is it that's really key to really having that and integrating that into the business. I guess we can start with Hans and kind of get your thoughts on that as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think Craig mentioned it. It's really a mindset. Of course, there's a lot of tactics how you can apply digital first thinking, but the mindset, I think, is the most important part that needs to change. And whether you're talking about digital first from a marketing perspective, product development, or even operations point of view, but I think that the most important part is to stay relevant and not be left behind, whether you're a brand or a company that's been around for decades. We've seen it with General Electric and their TV spots that they featured during the Olympics, where they're now saying we're an industrial and a digital company. Or of course, like Craig mentioned earlier, companies like Uber that really disrupt an entire industry. For me personally, I'd always experience I have with my children it are so eye-opening. I was with my family, and I keep telling a story, but I think it outlines it very well. We were on top of a mountain in Switzerland on vacation, and a beautiful view, beautiful day, and my daughter is on Facebook, and I go, we spend all this money, all coming over here, now we're on top of this beautiful mountain, and what are you doing on Facebook? And she looks at me and she goes, well, I'm live streaming to 40 of my friends back home in California right now. And I thought, well, I felt really dumbstruck, especially considering what I'm doing for a living, and I should think digital first. And, but it's that mindset that needs to change, that the world is not the same, that the way what we think to live in a moment is not the same anymore for a younger generation. And now we're seeing older generations adopting that as well. Like my wife and myself, we took a Uber ride, and the Uber driver, about 50 years old, he told us that he delivers the allowance to his children via, what's it called?
Venmo.
Yeah, the Cash app. I mean, he's 50 years old, and I'm not doing it. I give it by cash, so I felt a little left behind. But yeah, I think it's the mindset. The other, the way I look at it, and I think Google is speaking a little bit later on about micro moments that I think are so important, and I can't wait to hear more about it. I keep telling my daughter this, reading my daughter this book. It's called The Little Princess. It's about this little princess and she has a daddy king, mommy queen, and she wants her things, and she wants them right now. And if she doesn't get them, she starts to cry. It's a wonderful book, but because of digital first, that's us. We are all that little princess. We go to our mobile devices, we want answers, we want to buy it right now, we want to watch the movie right now, and if we can't, we go on Facebook and we go, you know, fuck this brand. We complain, we throw a fit, and I think that kind of sums up digital first to me on a lot of levels.
How do we get it out of the way? How do we make it subtle? If you think about a movie, the best special effects are the ones you never see. And really for a long time, the message I've been preaching is if you're going to be presenting great technology to people, this shouldn't be a jarring experience. Technology should look to the creatives and say, what's your vision? How do we enable this? How do we just simply make it seamlessly work? And that continues with digital first, but it's starting to say there are so many sources of information around. I was at Google had a Beyond the Road event recently, and I was at that where they're talking about, it's not just maps now for where people are. It's about your Uber driver knowing where to pick you up. It's about knowing that you're on your way home. It's about being able to turn on the thermostat for you as you get home. It's about all of these sources of data. It's about when you're on a website. We saw Adestra's presentation as we came in. And it's about knowing all of these facets of information about users, knowing what the user's doing, where they are on their journey already. And it's about, as technologists, saying, there's this wealth of data. How do we bring all of these different streams? Not just the obvious marketing ones that we're traditionally putting up on a marketing site. We just did something really fascinating with the Irvine company, where for the Spectrum, when you pull into their parking lots, you see these digital displays saying how many spaces are available in each lot. Well, we're taking that and we're saying, well, here's the sort of data. How do we get that embedded in the map? So when you go and look at a map of the complex, you're now actually looking to see a heat map in real time of where's parking available. If I want to go and park by this store, where am I going to find parking with my own personal level of frustration? What am I willing to deal with? Where do I go? And so we've moved from, technology, fair enough. This is the internet. It is a technology thing that we've been working on for a while. But it was that technology and then just kind of quietly keep it in the background. Now we're moving forward here. Gabrielle is a brilliant strategist. Her team provide brilliant strategy for us. But they're really bringing us in, and they need us in there saying, hey, there's this source of data, this source of data, this sort of data. How do we pull all of this together? How do we pull in a VR feed of an office building that maybe hasn't even been built yet? And how do we present that to a user so a user can explore it? So that really, to me, is the digital first technology side. It's about saying we've got this wealth of content out there, this wealth of information. How do we pull all of these many sources together? And how do we get that early in the process? How do we get that into the strategic thinking? And how do we work together rather than simply saying, okay, you guys think of what you'd like to have, and then we'll work out how to make it happen for you.
I thought Craig's thoughts on behaviors have changed. The tagline is there for a reason. Expectations have changed as well. So what we really do is look at the users, look at their needs, psychological needs, content needs, functional needs, look at the channels, where they are and where they might want to engage with the brand, but really focus on solving problems and pain points and bringing value. So yes, there's a lot of that outbound marketing things and ways to find people and start to begin that relationship, with prospects and things. But it's really about technology and the creativity, right message, right creative, appropriate, right, for each channel, and really just meeting the needs. If we put the user in the center and balance that, with the business goals, magic happens. So digital first. It's not an afterthought. Thank you.
And for you, Kathy, I know you've worked on a number of different brands. Some maybe not digital first, some just kind of getting into that and get your perspective on that as well.
Yeah, I think, those of you that are here, you come from many different facets of business, and, I've worked in technology, apparel, accessories, and healthcare more recently, and now do digital consulting. But one of the things, having worked for Oakley, that was an easy brand to think digital first. And I had the luxury of actually working in the web department where when we were launching a new product, we would meet with the brand folks, and we had a seat at the table. And going from that experience to that in healthcare, where traditionally it had been in print, and I walked in and it was as if they'd been in a bubble for 10 years where they hadn't been affected by the economy and things that many others had already experienced and had downsized and operationally fixed things. And so coming into that experience, there was this, great desire for moving towards digital, but not really understanding what that entailed. And so my first year on the job, I remember it was open enrollment, which for those of you in healthcare, that's like Christmas for healthcare, meaning, obviously retail Christmas is so crazy busy. But in any case, I was doing my thing and working on paid search programs, getting SEO up and running, and doing various display campaigns. And then I find out that there's a campaign running for open enrollment where it's all print, and the only URL mentioned is the main web URL with no friendly, URL and any analytics to go behind that huge buy. And so, it was too late. The buy had already happened, the insertion in place. But had a conversation with our boss and was like, look, I need to be part of that conversation early on. And I mentioned this because, that was 4 years ago. And that buy, literally, like I said, it was almost 100% print. As time had gone on and we, got to have conversations, really forced, my place at the table so that we would, include the proper, operational setup so that we could understand what was working and what wasn't. And as time had passed, we really found that, the traditional media really wasn't working and wasn't driving conversions. And you still need that from an awareness piece, but how can you, make that transformation? And really, it is thinking of the customer. So, I just had a landscaping project done, and all of my lighting, my fountain, everything is being driven from an app. I mean, that didn't happen. So really, anybody who doesn't want to be left behind needs to really think in terms of the consumer lens and what do I want? And to Gabrielle's point, it's like, what are the pain points of the customer? Healthcare is not sexy like Oakley. You don't want to think about healthcare until you have to. And so really figuring out what that means for the consumer and, being there. And I really think from, I break down all the different tactics from a digital perspective and think through, okay, if I'm in a doctor's office and I've received some bad news and I now have a condition and all these medical terms are coming out and the doctor leaves and then you start Googling and you're like, okay, what is this? What are the procedures? You want that information and you want to understand, what process you can take and what that patient journey will look like and take away some of the scariness of, a diagnosis. And so really, I think, brands that are doing it well are thinking in terms of the consumer, and you just need to always keep that in the forefront to do it well. And for those of you who are in a digital marketing role and who don't have a seat at the table, it's really forcing that to happen because you're only going to help, your company reach its overall marketing goals.
Obviously, there's the obvious ones, like Uber, Airbnb, the ones that really disrupted entire industries. But there's a little company here in Irvine. They're called Combatant Gentlemen. I don't know if how many of you have heard of them yet, but they're a clothing company, and they're specializing in suits, dress shirts, dress shoes, and they've been in business for about 5 years, I believe. They don't have any stores. They're only selling online. And, I was used to going into retail stores and paying $500 to $1,000 for a suit and have it tailored, and a couple days later I pick it up. And then I came across this company, and I was really reluctant to purchase from them because I didn't know. I'm going to order it online, I'm going to get it home, it's going to completely not fit, and I'm going to spend a ton of money on the tailor. And then eventually, about 2 years later, I decided I'll try them out. And I've been not going into any stores anymore since then. And so in terms of going back to your earlier question, what comes first, tech or where does it come from? Sometimes it's tech, where tech solves a specific need that I have or a specific desire. Other times it's here, but I'm going to take some time to get used to that idea, to do this completely online now and not go to the store. So the shift can come from anywhere, but and sometimes it can take time for the user to get there and start accepting it. And of course, word of mouth is extremely important as well. But I think that's a company that's a very good example of just coming in, getting rid of physical retail stores, not even having them, all online sales, delivering suits, same quality, third of the price, and again, it's another Uber on its way, in my opinion.
And if there's any, like one key takeaway, like the most important thing, it's probably going to be a number of different answers from everyone here, depending on your kind of the competency that you guys are working in, but would love to get that. Just that one nugget of key advice for digital first thinking.
Sure. So I think for me, it's very much what are the sources of information you have, what are the sources of data, and how do you, within that, within the opportunities you have, how do you do something that makes people's lives easier? You help people, you make their lives better, they'll value you.
I would start with your audiences or your personas. We use personas like visualization of who you're marketing to. So who are they? What do they care about? Their emotional needs. So starting with the personas and then mapping out the user journey. So if you want to meet them, where and how are you going to do that? And then once you meet them, how do you welcome them? So map out that journey and then try to solve each of those interactions, moments, and problems.
I think branding is a very important part which has changed through digital. We just received a style guide for a large international corporation. Style guide defining all the colors and typography and the type of imagery you should use. 230 pages. The last 8 pages focus on digital. And all they do is basically say, okay, our CMYK colors are this in digital, here's the RGB, here's the digital font versus traditional. And that's a very old way of going about digital. You're basically creating a brand. How does it work? What kind of feeling do you get? Animations, really digging deep to bring out what your brand attributes are, bringing it out through the brand in a physical, interactive way, and focusing there, and then worry about if you ever get to do a Super Bowl ad, put that on page 205 once you're big enough and you have that kind of money. But initially you're going to be on Facebook, you're going to be on the internet, you're going to have an app, so figure that out first.
For you, Kathy?
I like to look at data. So I think it's really important, at least with my focus, I want to go into Google Analytics and depending on which brand I'm working on and find out where are the customers coming from today, what devices are they using. You'd probably be surprised to learn that some of the healthcare organizations I work with, anywhere from 40 to 60% of the users are accessing their website through a mobile device. So if you spend, I think now the trouble is, and it still happens, we'll have like an agency of record that's a creative agency. And the easiest thing to launch a campaign creative on is what? A print ad. And then I'm always sitting there and I'm thinking, well, okay, what are you going to be spending from your media on print versus digital? And if it's more geared towards digital, shouldn't we be thinking about how that's going to look? And so recently I was in a situation where I was working on a campaign and there were a few different agencies involved. And so the creative agency stated that they were digital first, and definitely do your homework on that to make sure that they're not lying to you. But we made it so that when it came time to transition over to kind of my world, that we asked them to take an effort in what would the landing page look like. And then when we got that, we said, okay, now what would it look like if it was mobile? And obviously if you have a good website platform, it's going to be responsive, but just relying on just what it will translate to responsive is not enough. you really want to look at it and go, okay, now what will it really look like on a mobile phone? And then take elements out that aren't really necessary because you just don't have much of that person's time. They want information immediately. So again, look at your data, look at what's coming in from referral traffic, look at what social media sites are working for you and not, and definitely to make your analytics work, definitely think in terms of that ahead of time so that if you are doing traditional media, you're using friendly URLs and mechanisms so that you can get that data on the back end and it can be meaningful and affect your buy in the future.
So let's start by thinking of data in a very personal way to kind of drive this home, because one of the things I'm going to talk about is the importance of the email address to everything we do digitally, and how that is going to increase over time to be the centerpiece of everything you do digitally. So think personally about email, and about your email address, and think about your personal email address. Now this is my personal email. Please don't email me at the Gmail one or add it to weird stuff. Last conference I was at, I got signed up for some odd site, and I'm like, why did you do that? Think about your own. This identifies, it unlocks everything about us. Now the top email address is my work email. The bottom one is my personal email. Both of those unlock different pieces of information. And it really does tell who you are as an individual. Now let me demonstrate that. When you get a new phone, new iPad, what do? First screen, put in your email address. Right? Think about when you go to a retailer and you put in an email address for a discount or a coupon or to get your receipt. Now you've given your email address to a retailer. Next you've gone to a doctor's office. How can we best contact you about appointments? I put in my email address. Think about it. The amount of information that now can be associated back to your email address is growing exponentially the more we interact. It's on our mortgage papers. If we rent a house, an apartment, if we buy a house, we put that email address. And it's usually our primary email address, right? We've even gone to the bank and said, hey, where do I send my statements? Where do I have control? What's my login? The use of our personal email address now is used at so many different places. When tied together, it starts to identify who we are as individuals. All of us, all of you guys out there. And this isn't just a B2C piece, it's a B2B piece. So this is about both the B2B and B2C side, and it's about B2C and B2B because of this. Because Microsoft bought LinkedIn. You now have an organization that has the most data of any other data provider, because they can link personal behavior with business employment. And not only business employment, but your LinkedIn profile, and even if you're not up to date in your LinkedIn profile, you may use a Microsoft product at your work environment, your workplace. So using data to identify the consumer is not just a B2C thing. It's not just something that retailers do. It's what all of us have to start doing. Because we have all of these pieces of information out there. Now, what we've done as marketers, in a poor way, is devalue the value of an email address. Because the average consumer has 3 email addresses. Now think about your own behavior, right? And some of you have to exclude yourself because we're all kind of crazy in digital marketing, right? But the average consumer has 3 email addresses. One is their primary email address. One is their junk email address. So they go to a website and they don't really give a damn. So what do? They put in a junk email address. The third is an old email address that they got rid of a long time ago, but Aunt Flo keeps emailing asking about Uncle Larry. So they keep it around. But we've devalued email because we've asked stupid questions. Like this, you come to a website and you say, hey, give me your email address. Email is almost as important as a social security number. And actually, if you think about it, in all the places that you've given your email address, it actually is more important than your social security number. I can find out more about each one of you with your personal email address than I can with your social security number. because we give it out everywhere. But we've devalued it by asking these kind of questions. This kind of stuff drives me crazy. And the stats are that 56% of consumers, when they come to an experience like this, give us the wrong email address. They either leave the site or give a junk email address or give just wrong information outright. So we're devaluing the value of that email that can identify the consumer and everything we want to know about it. Now, from email's perspective, we see email from an ROI perspective is the best, right? Because email continues to bring it home year after year after year. In the US, marketers are showing ROI way beyond any other digital channel. Why? Because we can identify the consumer. We polled teens, millennials, and baby boomers. We asked them, there's like 27 pages in this report. And we asked them, one of the questions we asked is, if you could, or why do you have an email address, first off? They said, because it's a way of life. Teens, millennials, right? Now, we asked the question, how do you communicate most with your friends? Answer, SMS. Of course, not a shocker. In Australia, by the way, it's Facebook Messenger. And there's no difference in SMS costs. We asked teens and millennials if you could have a preference in how commercial brands communicate with you, what would you want it to be? We offered SMS, social, all this stuff. 76% teens and millennials picked email. Email is seen by the teen and millennial. What teens and millennials are able to do is they're drawing boxes around experience. They're treating the channel as the channel. They don't make Instagram like Facebook. They don't make email like SMS. They see the channel and its characteristics as in that channel. There's no relationship between the two. It's all digital. It's all a way to communicate. But they see communication and email as separate from what they communicate with their friends or feedback forms in apps or in Instagram or whatever. So teens don't, this death of email because teens are going to rule the world by texting their boss the report every day is crap, right? Teens actually, some of the deeper analysis of the report, they accept that email is going to be a part of their life as they go forward. They're not rejectionist of it. They see it for what the value is.